Welcome to What Healthy Couples Know That You Don't, a podcast dedicated to helping you create the relationship you truly want.
How to regulate your emotions and understand triggers for healthier communication. We all know that communication is the backbone of any healthy relationship. But it's not just what we say. It's how we show up emotionally when we say it. Many of our most challenging conversations aren't actually about the surface issue, like the dishes, the lateness, or the tone. They're about the emotional reactions happening underneath. Today, we're talking about emotional regulation and understanding emotional triggers and how those two pieces can completely change the way we connect with each other. The truth is, triggers are not signs that something is wrong with us. They're signs that something inside us needs attention. I really like that. I'm going to say it again. Triggers are signs that something inside us needs attention. Triggers point us towards stories, memories, and unmet needs that haven't been fully processed. When we ignore that, we end up reacting from old pain instead of responding to what's really happening in the present moment. And the people we love can get caught in the crossfire. So today, we're going to slow this down. We're going to explore what emotional regulation actually means and why it matters so deeply in relationships. Emotional regulation is not about being calm all the time. It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending not to feel things. It's about being able to stay with your emotions without being overwhelmed by them and being able to choose how you respond. Choices create our lives. And the more we are able to choose to respond, the more successful we will be in having longevity in our relationships. That's why adolescents have such a struggle, because they are bombarded by hormones and all kinds of new emotions that they don't really understand yet. And it's a huge time for learning, growth, and confusion. As adults, we still have more to learn and more opportunity to grow, to be someone who can pause and have perspective and understanding. Thank goodness for lifelong learning. Most of us were never really taught about what to do with strong emotions. We learned to shove it down, to hold it together, or to push through. Today's guest is here to help all of us out. She is Robin Gutman, a licensed mental health counselor and the founder of Monarch Counseling Group, with specialized training in internal family systems and the Gottman method. Her strength-based, personalized approach empowers clients to recognize their inner resources and create meaningful, lasting change. Her website is robingutman.com. So, thanks for being here, Robin.
Thank you for having me, Rhoda. This is a topic that I'm really passionate about, so I'm excited to delve in.
Oh, good. To start us off, how do you define emotional regulation in a way that everyday people can understand?
Okay, so I'm sure there's lots of people who have different definitions. To boil it down, I'm going to say that essentially emotional regulation means that you know what you're feeling and your feelings and your actions are aligned, and ideally they're coming from a place that you understand. So you really get yourself.
I like that. I like understanding your emotions because they are so confusing, and I think there's an adolescent part of each of us that struggles with what's really going on here, that never got finished.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah.
What are some strategies that are practical that my audience can put into play today to improve their ability to regulate emotions?
Okay, so Emotions could be uncomfortable, right? And a lot of us are just not used to really delving into them. I mean, you know the basic emotions, you know, if you're happy or sad or mad, like the ones that you learn as a child, you know, the really basic ones. And then there are so many more words that you can use that just really convey more accurately what you're actually experiencing. And the reason that I think that's super important is because when you actually name your emotion and really define what you're experiencing, something shifts. You feel that like aha moment. There's like that click, that connection of like, okay, I get myself. I really know what I'm experiencing right now, right? And you can just understand yourself that much more. That is like super crucial, the understanding of why you're feeling that. And the reason I think it's so important, and this is so easy to just shove under the rug, right? Usually people will be like, I'm feeling this way, and they kind of stop there, if you even get there, right? You stop there. I know what I'm feeling, and like you might feel self-righteous or whatever it is you feel like, and that's great, you can validate your emotion. To me, it's really important to figure out why. Why am I feeling this way? Where is this coming from? And I do use like IFS here a lot just to help people dig down a little deeper and really identify with what they're feeling. The information that you come up with when you do this, it's going to actually be the template that you use to help yourself to know what to do next, to help yourself feel more comfortable and to be able to actually emotionally regulate.
So what are some of the questions you can ask yourself?
So recognizing, okay, so number one, you're naming the emotion, right? And then you're going to check with yourself, like, why am I feeling, I don't know, pick an emotion, angry. Why am I feeling angry, right? Okay, because maybe something didn't go my way. Okay, so why is this really activating me? Like, what is it about what happened that's getting me this angry? Like, also check with yourself to see if your reaction is actually proportionate. You know, you're allowed to feel whatever feeling comes up. Like, I don't know that you could control the feeling, but the idea of emotional regulation is, again, that you just want to make sure that what's coming out is proportionate and aligned and feels like right to you. Even if right, I don't know if right is the best word, because I'm going to say that you might actually feel uncomfortable, okay? And you might not like to hear this, but you might not feel comfortable with a certain emotion, and that's where some distress tolerance comes in. Right? If I'm feeling really sad or I'm really disappointed, and we might just not want to feel that way. We want to distract ourselves, but it's okay to, like, you can train your system to feel okay with disappointment, regret, sadness, like those emotions that are kind of uncomfortable, you know?
I like that a lot. I one of the things I believe is that you can't grow unless you're willing to be uncomfortable. And certainly there's those moments, and it is disgusting. You know, am I really disappointed because I only got flowers and candy for Valentine's Day? You know, is that reasonable? Is that proportional, as the word you're using? And I think that thinking about it is an important part, because emotions are so much about feeling. You want to kind of tune in with your thinking. Is that right?
You definitely want to tune in. Yeah. And I don't expect anybody, just to clarify, to be like robotic, right? But maybe some of what we want to talk about is how to access that part of yourself that's like, and that's part of emotional regulation, is being able to access that part of yourself, to walk yourself through that, kind of like hold your own hand through that.
Yeah. What are some common signs that we or someone else is becoming emotionally dysregulated even before we or they realize it? I thought this was an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, okay, so some common signs would be anything that's related to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses. Like any of those, if you're noticing some of those responses, whether that's shutting down or becoming angry, becoming defensive, dissociating, maybe your heart's racing or your palms are sweating. Like, there's physical and emotional reactions that you're just going to notice that. And again, that's part of being tuned into yourself. So they're all signs that something within you is getting activated. And this is pretty individual. So this is why I really encourage people to tune into their reactions. Like, before you try to change anything, I want you to notice what's happening inside yourself.
Yeah, I think, and you also have to honor what's underneath it. Let's take the example of anger, that if you're angry, maybe what's underneath it is feeling too small, and you're puffing yourself up to feel bigger. So understanding that there's a reason for it, but it doesn't have to be exaggerated and cut somebody off at their knees. That fair?
And also, Yeah, and as you're saying that, I'm thinking, right, so they're angry because they're feeling small. So maybe when they name the emotion, when they really think about it, yeah, there's anger there, but maybe the anger is covering up fear or sadness or something else. And when you know that, then you know how you really want to address it, right?
Yes.
Because then you're not really addressing the anger, you're addressing something else that's lying a little bit, deeper.
We hear the word triggered a lot in our culture today. What does being triggered actually mean from a mental health standpoint? And do you agree that sometimes this word can go too far in not facing difficult disagreement?
Ooh, I like that you're asking that. Yes. So, triggered is really when something is happening to you right now in the present and it's actively reminding you of something difficult or traumatic that you've experienced in the past. So, that's what I would say is a trigger. And it's making you uncomfortable, right? Now, the problem is, this is something that is really important to know, is that yes, this word could definitely be used as a shield. And I like to say that when things happen to you, let's say in a relationship, right? Your partner does something, or a friend or someone that you're in a relationship with does something to you. They can do it for a reason. Maybe there is something in their past that led them to react that way, but that's not an excuse. I like to say a reason is not an excuse. It's not the same thing. You can understand why, but you can't whitewash it. You can't just excuse it away. So that's important to know. So if someone's shutting down and refusing to communicate to their partner, or they're not open to hearing their partner's point of view because they're being triggered and they're saying, no, I can't talk about this, it's too triggering. I mean, I get it. Triggers are a real thing. It becomes their responsibility to do the individual work surrounding this trigger, because otherwise it's unfair to their partner, right? So you can have triggers, they're valid, they're true. It's important to not use it as a shield, not use it as an excuse, and do that individual work so that you can show up in the best way possible in your relationship.
I really like your distinction about the word shield, because I think that has become something that's too prevalent, that I have to protect myself from something difficult, and that's not really how we grow up in my mind.
Exactly. That goes back to going out of your comfort zone a little bit.
In relationships, what are the most common triggers you see come up between partners or family members?
Oh my gosh, I think it's almost always related to feeling seen and heard. Like everybody just wants to feel seen and heard. That's it.
Yeah, that's right. That I would agree with that completely. I think that people get too busy with their own reality and then letting in somebody else's difficult reality. It's not a skill that we've developed. And in listening to so many couples for so many years, I realize that a lot of times I'm simply a bridge for them to start seeing and hearing each other differently. And I really agree with you. And because it makes all the difference in the world. All of a sudden somebody thinks, oh, wait a second, maybe I've distorted what it is that they've been saying based on the past or whatever. And I think that accurately working to see somebody with a little more benefit of the doubt is an important skill that we don't talk about enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Assuming that your partner has positive intent.
Yes.
Like don't go into a conversation assuming they were out to get me. Like you're a team. They likely had, at best, they were maybe neutral. Like they were thoughtless. They didn't think, but they probably weren't being malicious. So there's like malicious and, thoughtless and positive. Best would be if we assume positive intent, but at the very least, let's not go to negative,
Yeah, another good distinction. What role does attachment style play in how we respond emotionally to emotionally charged situations?
I think I'm with the attachment theory. So I think attachment style plays a huge role in how we respond, because there's a dynamic there that's like inherent to our being that really dictates our responses. So if we feel comfortable and secure, then we're gonna assume, again, we're kind of gonna assume that positive intent, and we're gonna feel pretty confident, pretty comfortable that we're gonna be heard the way we want to. And we're going to feel a lot more comfortable than if we're carrying like uncertainty or a feeling of having to stay small and quiet. So much goes back to the attachment.
Yes. So you want to say a little bit more about the two primary attachment styles and what you think about that, since you seem excited about that?
Yeah, well, there's secure attachment, which is, where somebody feels
The
confident
good
in.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They were hurt as a child. There was space made for them, so they feel confident that I can show up in a relationship and this person's going to hear me out. And that doesn't mean we have to always agree, but like we're okay disagreeing. We can agree to disagree. We can talk about differences. We can navigate. We can negotiate. All the good stuff. And then there's the anxious. And then there's anxious. There's avoidant. There's anxious, avoidant. There's a few different styles, but essentially, whether somebody is anxious or avoidant, there's a push-pull in their relationship. Either one person wants more than the other. One person's avoiding. There's so many dynamics that come up with that, it's really going to dictate our response in definitely in conflict, but even in conversations sometimes, even in, like Gottman says, turning towards like bids for connection. Like if there's an avoidant attachment style, that might be challenging too. So yeah, it's pretty important.
Yeah, I agree. So, what else? What are some practical grounding techniques that someone could use in the moment when they feel triggered, or to create the pause? Everybody, we all talk about the pause that helps with communicating more effectively.
Yeah. So there are some things that we all, have heard recently, somatic things and grounding and mindfulness, and I really like all of them. They're great. I think it's important to go back to the naming feelings part, because if someone thinks like, oh, so if I'm feeling lots of emotion, I'm just going to start, tapping or taking deep breaths. You could do that, but it might be so misaligned with what you're feeling that it won't actually be helpful. So I want you to keep that in mind. And another thing I always like to tell my clients is practice the techniques, whatever you choose to do. And I'll give you some examples, but it's important to practice them when you're calm. Don't start deep breathing when you're like escalated and you've never really done it before. It won't help. And then you'll get frustrated, right? Deep breathing, it doesn't help. Well, it might help. You just have to practice it first in calm moments and get really good at it, right? That's like going to the gym and picking up like a 50-pound weight and saying like, forget it, weights are too heavy. I can't do strength training.
That's true.
Do you know there's also 2-pound weights, right? So do it slowly and gradually build up your skills. So some of the techniques might be, using any of your 5 senses, right? Whether it's smell, touch, taste, any of the 5 senses to help you. And again, this is so individual, right? Somebody might be turned off by a scent that somebody else finds very calming. So find the things that speak to you. It could be breathing techniques, right? I would say just tune in. If you're feeling pressure in your hand like you want to punch somebody and you're doing breathing, that's not really going to help. So you might want to press your palms together really hard. But if you're feeling tension in your jaw and you're pressing your palms together, misalignment, right? So tune in. That's the most important thing, is just know what you're feeling, know where you're feeling it, know why you're feeling it.
Yeah, okay. One of the ones I suggest to people is that if you already know where you carry most of your stress, then maybe leaning into that. So let's say it's your shoulders and your face and your tension is up there, and then squishing everything really, really tight and hold it and then let go and focus on that loose, tingly feeling.
Yeah.
And you could talk about in the future with your partner and say, I may be doing this, because I just need a moment and I just want to kind of reduce the stress so we can have a better conversation. And
Yeah.
a lot of people grab onto that exercise because I think you're leaning into what is, and then you're offering the opposite, which I think can be grounding.
Yeah.
How can we communicate to someone else that we're feeling dysregulated without escalating the conflict?
Okay, verbalize it. I'm a big fan of communication, right? Verbalize it and share what you're experiencing internally, because you want to be careful that when you're verbalizing, you're not shifting the blame onto the other person. So just share with them what you're experiencing so that there is no blame, and it's not an automatic assumption that your partner has to fix it. Just let them know what you're going through and what you need. And just going back to what you said before too about that somatic piece, right? Sometimes it might even help to lay down on the floor. Even if you're in a conversation with your partner, right? Just lay down, do something kind of silly, or even holding hands and looking into each other's eyes. It's hard to yell like that, right? Or even whispering. Like, these are all techniques that you can use in the conversation to de-escalate, to help regulate.
And also still being sincere that you're feeling that way and you need to do something to take care of yourself, which is,
Yeah.
it's a great I statement. When is it helpful to take space during a conflict? And how do we take space in a way that doesn't feel like bailing? How can this be communicated so that the space can still happen? Because I think that's the problem. We kind of back people into corners when we're angry, and they don't literally have enough space to talk. So what you mentioned a moment ago, the laying down could be a way of taking space. But what are your ideas about that?
Yeah, if it's possible, I mean, you can't do this if you're in a car, right? But if you're in a space that you're able to take actual physical space, so then do that. The only thing is you don't want to be like storming out of the room. You don't want to be slamming doors. You want to, again, verbalize, communicate your needs. I need a few minutes to just regulate myself. Do you mind if we pause the conversation? Very important to have a specific time to reconnect. I'll be back in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, right? Not never or tomorrow. Like, we're in the middle of a conversation. It's okay to take space, but don't let the conversation just be discontinued.
Yes, I think that discontinuing is something that lots of people do because they don't really like the whole conversation to begin with,
Yeah, exactly.
Any advice on starting a hard conversation that people don't want to talk about? Let's just take money.
Yes. My number one tip would be make sure that you're both on board. Like, if your spouse just came in and they're carrying groceries and like the dog needs to be fed and the kids are screaming, like, yeah, this is not the time to tell them like why they annoyed you. Like, this is just like the conversation won't go well, right? So make sure that your partner's on board. You can let them know, hey, something's on my mind. When's a good time to chat? Make an appointment. I know it might sound so formal, but it's helpful. Make an appointment. Make up a time and a place. Where are we meeting, right? I'm not responsible to chase you down for this conversation. Like, let's do something that works for both of us. And that way you're just getting off to a good start because neither one of you is coming in, hopefully, dysregulated as you might be if you're like ambushed.
So what if you make an appointment and it gets derailed over and over and over again?
Yeah, okay, so this is where we want like the emotional regulation piece, right? Okay, so of course there's the idea of taking breaks, but really one of the most important things is if it's just going off the rails over and over, then something's not okay. Something's not okay inside of you. That's where a lot of the individual work comes in. There's too much activation within to allow for good communication and smooth communication. This is where it's time to look inwards. It's time to go back to, what we were talking about before of like, name what you're feeling. Why are you feeling this way? And then ask yourself why again. I want you to ask yourself why like 5 or 6 times because you're just digging and digging and digging until you're getting to the root of it. And then all of a sudden it's like, almost like an aha moment. Now I can't say that people can always do this by themselves. They might need to do this in therapy with like a licensed counselor who can help them. But it's important to keep asking the whys, go levels deeper. I think it's life-changing when you do that.
What's a common misunderstanding people have about emotional regulation that you wish you could correct?
Okay, emotional regulation does not mean that you have to be cool, calm, and collected all the time. That's not what it means. Okay, it's normal to feel emotions, it's normal to react with emotions, but there has to be a place where you draw the line. So things like that I would say are a definite no in my book: name calling, mocking, sarcasm, belittling, or any kind of violence, definitely. Like, that does not have to be tolerated in a relationship. But you don't either have to be all zen.
I don't think it would be possible.
Yeah.
How do we repair and communicate after a rupture when emotional dysregulation has already happened?
Okay, so after a dysregulation has already happened, you want to be able to acknowledge what you were experiencing. Acknowledge your feelings. I keep going back to that because I'm very passionate about it. Like, you have to know what you're feeling. Don't shove it under the rug. And the reason it's super important here is because once you're able to do that, you're actually able to take accountability for your actions or for your responses or for your behavior, for whatever came up, right? If I know what I'm experiencing, then I'm able to acknowledge it. If I became defensive, I'm able to realize why, and I'm able to own up to it, right? If I became critical, I can recognize that in myself. I can recognize why. I can do something different. You have to recognize and change something. And that's the way that we could take responsibility and learn skills that really allow for constructive conflict so that you can do better in the future. You want to have productive conversations.
There's a emotions wheel on
Yes.
Amazon for like $10, and it shows you basic emotions and then connections with other more precise words. Also, on the emotions page of my website, I have a 2-page list of emotion words that I developed when I did incest work back in 1980, when people were not talking about it, there were no books written about it, and then being able to pick some of the words that fit how you're feeling, and then applying them and thinking about them and making sentences with them to deepen that understanding of yourself. And that's all really helpful stuff. And now I have men printing them off the website and practice them with their partners. Just pick the words and then work with it. And you mentioned earlier, practice is so important. And it really is. And people don't recognize that, you're not going to do deep breathing twice and it's a magic relief. You have to practice. Yeah, I think that's really...
Yeah, and the feelings wheel, I haven't seen it specifically on Amazon, but I will say if you type feelings wheel into like your Google browser, you can get a free PDF.
Okay.
Accessible nowadays. Like it's so, like you're saying, and I encourage people, like print it out, put it on your fridge, take a screenshot, like refer back to it, because it's going to help you. And it's not just about naming is important. It's super important. And exactly what you said, like you've got to become comfortable with the lingo, like the feelings vocabulary. Even as an adult, you want to be expanding your feelings vocabulary, and you want to be connecting your experiences to the words. It's not just about like, oh, now I know lots of feelings words, I'm good. Connect your experiences to them. Now connect to them, right? And then understand why things are coming up. So it's a bit of a journey, but worth it.
And I think that precision in vocabulary, it really, like, let's take jealousy and revenge. They're obvious, but they're two completely different things in many ways, and understanding those distinctions really matters. And sometimes we live in a frantic world and there's just not time enough. But if we make time for this, it's something that can make all of your relationships better, and that's worth working on,
Yeah, definitely. You said something before also that brought up a thought, which was about emotional regulation in relationships, that I just want to put out there, that sometimes there's a partner that is very cool, calm, and collected. And they might think that they have the upper hand because of that. And what I've noticed very often, and I've noticed it with individuals in therapy too, the people who sometimes seem very cool, calm, and collected are kind of disconnected from their emotions, and they're a little bit afraid to tap into them because of maybe what might come up. Maybe they'll get triggered. But it's just something to note. If anyone's listening to this and they're like, oh, like I am actually pretty zen. Okay. Maybe you want to tap in a little deeper.
Great. And what haven't we covered? Another pearl of wisdom for my audience that you would like to share?
I think I'm just going to remind everyone that becoming more comfortable with your emotions is key to being able to communicate effectively. If you become comfortable with your emotions, the long-term gain that you get out of it is that your relationships will change, because you're going to have that self-awareness. And it's not uncommon for people to think that they're self-aware, but if your most cherished connections are not where you want them to be, and you really want to get closer and you want to have deeper relationships with people and better relationships, it's probably time for some deeper self-exploration. It's going to actually change your relationships.
I just had a client ask me whether or not I had a book to recommend to help him work with his emotions, and I didn't. Do you have one?
One that I like to recommend is Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart, because she has so many words, emotion words, and explaining what they are. So I think it's a good one. Yeah, I recommend that often.
Okay, great. Good to know. Please share your website and where people can find you on social media.
Sure. So my website is robingutman.com. And there's actually a fun quiz on there. You can take that quiz and you can get on my mailing list too. I send out a monthly email, and actually the last one was talking about relationships and constructive conflict, so that could be helpful. And then I'm on Instagram as well, and my handle is @RobinGutman_LPC.
Okay. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this reminder. Emotional regulation is not about perfection. It's about noticing. It's about building a pause. It's about learning to recognize when your body is asking for care rather than criticism. Every time you take a breath before reacting, every time you name what you're feeling instead of stuffing it down, every time you choose curiosity over defensiveness, you are changing your emotional patterns in real time, and that is powerful. Thanks so much for listening, and you can find me on social media, including TikTok, at Rhoda on Couples. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for listening to What Healthy Couples Know That You Don't. If you have enjoyed the show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes and help get the word out. To learn more or connect with Rhoda, visit therapyideas.net.